Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wild. Today we are talking about Uber DoorDash plunge after Labor Department proposes change to gig worker classification. Yup. Looks like Biden is coming after the gig economy once again and attacking the freedoms of those who choose to work for themselves. Quite honestly, I think enough's enough with this nonsense, but let's be realistic. This is not definite. This is simply something that is happening just before midterm elections, so that way he could potentially gain more votes. It doesn't mean he can do it. It doesn't mean it's gonna go through for certain, but it is 100% possible that it does. So with that said, I want to go over what's being said in this article, how it actually is for gig workers and the freedom of gig workers and everything in between. So with that said, let's get started. The Biden Labor Department has released a proposal Tuesday that could pave the way for regulators and courts to reclassify gig workers as employees rather than independent contractors. Honestly, this is really frustrating that this even came out at all. And honestly, I would be really pissed if this actually goes through. The proposed rule, if adopted, could raise costs for companies like Lyft, Uber, Instacart, and Doordash that rely on contract workers to pick up shifts on their own schedules. Shares of Lyft fell 12% on Tuesday, while Uber dropped to 10.4% and Doordash shed 6%. These companies are scraping by as it is. And yes, you can also argue that the CEOs are not going to be making as much money and stuff like that, and they could always just reduce their own paychecks in order to pay for certain things. But let's be realistic, that's not happening. They would rather either shut the whole thing down, keep the same amount of costs, and make it that much harder for gig workers to work in America, long before they even do that. The companies have argued that flexible schedules are attractive to workers, pointing to surveys showing the popularity of the model, which they say made it possible by the use of independent contractor status. Some labor experts and activists have disagreed, however, saying the companies use the contractor model to reduce their own costs while denying workers important protections such as healthcare benefits, overtime pay, and the ability to organize unions. I'll tell you what, overtime pay, most people don't want that. We are not paid by the hour, we're paid for the work we do. That's what it means to be an independent contractor. Healthcare benefits, most of the time you're going to be paying out of pocket anyway. And the large majority of the time, the healthcare system is a scam anyway. So really, they're just upset that they don't have the ability to scam us. And organizing into unions, most of the time, unions don't actually help people. Like, I've been a part of unions, and for the most part, they have proven they are as ineffective as they've always been. It's literally just a way to siphon money from people. And yes, I would rather have the flexible schedules and the ability to work as long as I want to for as much as I want to. Having the ability to say no to certain work long before I take any of those benefits and the overtime pay. And the ability to organize a union. In 2020, a California law went into effect requiring many companies to reclassify contract workers as employees. But later that year, voters approved of a proposition that exempted app-based ride-hailing and delivery companies from the law. That would be Prop 22. And most people are happier with that than they would be as an employee. Last year, the Biden administration rescinded a rule created under Trump's Labor Department that would have made it easier for gig companies to classify workers as independent contractors instead of employees. But after a legal challenge, a court reinstated the Trump-era rule, which, again, is better off for us in the long term. We want that. I feel like Biden is not even looking out for the betterment of people. He's just looking to eradicate Trump as a whole. And regardless of whether your political view is for Trump or against him, or for Biden or against Biden, this is affecting our lives. But of course, they need to do this just before midterm elections. Biden's Labor Department said in its notice in the Federal Register that it had considered waiting longer to see how the Trump-era rule played out, but it decided to move ahead with the proposed regulation instead because it believes keeping the early rule in place would have a confusing and disruptive effect on workers and businesses alike due to its departure from case law describing and applying the multi-factor economic reality test as a totality of the circumstances test. They're completely full of crap on that. They're trying trying to gain votes for midterm elections. They're not really trying to help the people at all. And they just don't want to do their job. They don't want to do the work of actually putting real things in place to actually help us. They would rather just eradicate the system overall, which is ridiculous. The proposed rule would allow the determination of whether to classify a worker as a contractor or employee to rely on a more holistic assessment, including whether the work is an integral part of the employer's business. The goal is to protect workers from being classified improperly while providing consistency for businesses that wish to employ independent contractors, the agency wrote. Which, by the way, all gig workers in the food delivery industry are independent contractors, and that is an integral part. So basically, if this were to go into place, this would definitely affect us, hands down, no questions asked. The new proposed rule will still need to make its way through the formal regulatory process, including allowing time for the public to submit comments before it's adopted. So it's not guaranteed yet, let's be clear, this is not a certainty, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if this does go through. The attacks on the gig economy need to stop. Uber's head of federal affairs, C.R. Wooters, said in a statement that the proposed rule takes a measured approach, essentially returning us to the Obama era, during which our industry grew exponentially. In a time of deep economic uncertainty, it's crucial that the Biden administration continues to hear from more than 50 million people who have found an earning opportunity with companies like ours. In their words, they're trying to knock us so far into the past. They're trying to basically make it so that way Trump was never involved in the presidency at all, which wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, Biden is not doing a good job as president either. And before we go too deep into that, this is not a political channel. This is not a left side channel, right side channel, nothing to that effect. I am simply just stating the opinion for what I believe is best for gig workers. And a lot of people got into the gig economy because of the flexibility, because of the ability to work on your own time for as long as you want or as little as you want. So doing this would genuinely destroy the gig economy as a whole if it were to come into play. In a blog post Tuesday, Lyft wrote that there is no immediate or direct impact on the Lyft business at this time, noting that the 45-day public comment period, it added that the rule does not reclassify Lyft drivers as employees and also doesn't force it to change its business model. Lyft said the rule simply reverts the standard to that used under the Obama administration, which previously applied to its company and did not result in the reclassification of drivers. So it is possible that we wouldn't be reclassified if this doesn't go through, but it is also possible that they might have a stricter rule. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds yet, but it is possible that this may not truly affect our day-to-day. Hopefully, that stays that way. This is my opinion. It's worth what you pay for it. None of you pay me. There you go. Honestly, anytime I hear that the government gets involved in what happens in the gig economy, everything goes south. Like, it's always something to genuinely affect our overall freedom. That's not even just for the gig economy. That's for literally anything involving the government, which is sad because a lot of people don't feel that they can trust their own country to have their back, because at the end of the day, they're really more interested in their own pockets and having the ability to control people, which really sucks. All in all, I hope that it doesn't go through. It says that nothing is changing immediately. I hope that nothing changes. I think 50 million people are already saying that this is not a good idea, even if it's not as much as what they're saying. Maybe there is a fraction of that I would prefer to be an employee. Let's say even 10 million people, 20% of the 50 million people, it's 10 million, want to be employees at the end of the day. Fine. Could be employees over there for an industry that is not ours, because clearly this is not for you. And that's also another good point. The gig economy is not for everybody. So if you don't feel that you're happy in the gig economy, don't be here. No one's forcing you to be here. But for those of us who would prefer to stay independent contractors, let's pray that it stays that way in the long term, because because that is what everybody wants here. They want the freedom to set their own schedule. They want the freedom of being able to work as much or as little as they want. They want the freedom of utilizing this as an income bridge to what would be a long-term goal and not having to worry about a boss or an office to where there is office politics. There's all these fighting that you have to do with the upper manager or whatever. And it makes it that much harder for you to actually create your own freedom because, well, you're dealing with people that don't want what's best for you, which is really sad to say and see. So at the end of the day, I hope this doesn't go anywhere. Usually these things get proposed, but they don't go through. Who knows though? I think it is a move for midterm elections. But that being said, he's been making a lot of moves like that. So let's hope for the best for the future of the gig economy. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!